Refused to pay extra for my siblings' luxury vacation upgrades, becoming the villain in the unwanted fifth wheel. I'm a 36-year-old woman with 2 brothers, both married. For the sake of clarity, I'll call my younger brother and his wife couple A, he's 31, she's 32, and my older brother and his wife couple B, he's 33, she's 30. The 5 of us decided to seize this rare window before kids start arriving and take a big sibling trip together, something we all could look back on. We settled on an 8-day adventure, split between 2 European cities, and started laying the groundwork. My own situation is pretty different from theirs. I make roughly $90,000 living in NYC, a salary that feels both high and restrictive, thanks to city life and a pile of out-of-pocket medical expenses for my chronic health issues. Only recently did I start this full-time gig. Before that, I made significantly less as a freelancer and part-time artist. I share my apartment with a roommate to make ends meet. Now, couple A is what I'd call properly wealthy, dual incomes, hundreds of thousands in the bank, just bought a beautiful house in the suburbs. Couple B, meanwhile, is a one-income household, by choice, and earns less than couple A, but it's still easily a couple $100,000 a year, and they also just became new homeowners. I started saving for this trip almost a year in advance, cutting corners wherever I could and socking away an extra $100 a month. I wanted enough stashed away to avoid being the killjoy on this once-in-a-lifetime trip, the one who had to say no to anything fun that involved spending money. For me, this was a heavy lift, but I truly believed it'd be worth it. From the get-go, we discussed our budgets. I said my ideal lodging would be around $30 $40 a night, with $50 as my absolute max. I'd already seen several Airbnbs in our chosen cities that got rave reviews within this budget, so I was hopeful. With 5 of us, including me as the only singleton, I suggested splitting costs per person, not per couple or room. I knew I'd end up on a couch or in the single bed, so I'd pay less for that. Everyone agreed. Couple A requested a king bed and a private bathroom, and volunteered to pay a bit more. Couple B just wanted a queen bed and nothing fancy. I threw myself into research, populating a shared document with 12 or 15 suitable Airbnbs, complete with price breakdowns and details. The biggest compromise for me was the dates. Both my sisters-in-law wanted their pregnancies timed so their second trimesters would land during the trip. It sounded unrealistic to me, but it was non-negotiable for them. July was the only option, largely tied to one's IVF schedule. July is prime travel season, peak prices for flights. I could have gone any time in a 6-month window, including much cheaper months, but I bit my tongue for the sake of togetherness. A few days later, my brother from couple A called to ask about my budget. That's when I made what turned out to be a crucial mistake. I shared my rough numbers with him. He immediately began poking holes in my math and helpfully suggested ways I could adjust. Caught up in his logic, I relented, and agreed I could stretch the nightly lodging budget to $80. As soon as I hung up, I texted the group thread to update everyone. The following day, the sister-in-law from couple A called. She told me couple B now wanted a king bed, too. I was a bit miffed. I'd already invested so much time into research, but said I'd look for new places. Things got trickier after I finally booked my flight and saw that tickets were even more expensive than I'd budgeted. A closer look at my savings numbers revealed a $200 shortfall compared to what I told my brother. I messaged the group, explaining my miscalculation and reinstating my original $50/night budget, just 4 days after agreeing to the $80. Meanwhile, I was hunting for places with 2 king beds, increasingly frustrated because this isn't standard in European Airbnbs. That upgrade drove up our options prices, pushing them out of reach for me unless I was willing to sleep on a couch or not have a real bed, which, honestly, truly, was fine by me. I wanted us all together, even if I had to compromise on comfort. I added plenty of well-reviewed, centrally located options to our dock. Then my younger brother called again. He pressed for details. What had changed? Why couldn't I make $70/night work, especially since his wife found a perfect Airbnb at that rate? I repeated my numbers, holding my ground. I could sense he wanted me to open the door to more debate, but I told him, frankly, look, asking for 2 king beds is an upgrade in Europe. I respect you needing comfort, but I don't think it's fair for me to shoulder higher costs for something I don't want or use. He got defensive, insisting that they were actually compromising for my sake, that splitting Airbnbs per person with an uneven group wasn't normal, that they'd never heard of anyone doing it that way, and that they were all going out on a limb to accommodate me. I was completely floored. So they'd all been talking behind my back, painting me as the unreasonable one? I tried to explain that this arrangement wasn't as strange as he claimed. I'd even checked with AI to make sure I wasn't imagining the per-person split idea. But he wouldn't budge. It became clear they saw me as the one everyone else was subsidizing, not as someone who was simply trying to make this work without breaking myself financially. Then he said, if we weren't taking your budget into account, my wife and I would pay way more to get way more. Translation, if I wasn't going, they'd happily upgrade, at a higher cost, but with me included, they wanted me to help bring the price down. I kept my cool and suggested that maybe I could just get a hostel and make it easier for everyone. Or they could take another look at my newest batch of shared listings. Still, after I hung up, I felt pretty awful. The tension was now painfully obvious. All this trip planning was making me feel like an outsider. Later that day, my younger brother's wife texted. She asked whether I'd go to $55/night if they covered another $20/night for me, framing it as an early birthday gift. Honestly, it just felt manipulative. My relationship with her had always been easy and open, but suddenly, I could feel the strings attached. If I said no, I'd be the one fighting over $20, not a lot of money, but a lot wrapped up in pride and principle. If I said yes, I'd be sending the message that my boundaries were up for negotiation, that their continual disrespect was something I'd just put up with. So I took a breath and wrote out a text that was both kind and firm. I told them again that $50 per night really was the absolute max I was willing to pay. I even reminded them about the alternatives I'd already found, and said I'd be happy to crash on a couch if it meant saving money. I closed by saying, if none of those worked, I could always just book my own hostel for the trip. Almost immediately, my sibling messaged back. They said they'd just get a hotel room for themselves and I should go ahead and book my hostel. Apparently, none of my suggestions were good enough for noise, location, and quality. That floored me, honestly, because the places I'd found were really well rated, 4, 8 or even 5 stars, favorite spots with travelers. But fine. I just responded, okay, sounds good. Later that evening, they sent me a link to the hotel they'd booked, apparently so I could find a hostel nearby. Ironically, the hotel they chose was definitely pricier than if they'd simply paid the upgrade for a king bed and allowed me the $50/night rate in a shared spot. So now, half the trip I'll be in a completely different place from them, and will only be sharing lodging for the first part of the journey, out in a more remote, less flexible location. Even there, once the cost is split, it ends up at $53 per person per night before considering the private bathroom upgrade. If they try to make a scene about that extra $3 a night, I swear I'll draw a hard line and I'm absolutely prepared to ditch that segment of the trip rather than cave. Now, instead of looking forward to this adventure, I'm half dreading it. I want to enjoy it, but my siblings and their wives have exposed blind spots in this sense of entitlement that's honestly making me lose respect for them. That's how it's all unfolded. And I can't help but wonder if others have ever had to deal with something this frustrating with family. 2 days after I said okay, sounds good, to the hotel/hostel split, the first curveball landed. Hey, so, there's a chance we might need to shift our flights because of my cycle, my younger brother's wife texted. The IVF calendar moved up by a week, which meant our carefully locked-in July dates either needed to slide or we'd be flying without them. I said I couldn't change mine without eating several $100s in fees that I didn't have. She said they'd figure it out. Then my older brother called from work, whispering, heads up, couple A's probably going to bail on the first city. Are you still going? I told him yes. He exhaled like I'd just saved him from drowning. Good. We're still going too. Also, don't be mad, I think our hotel might have weak AC. In July. In a heat wave the news was already naming. I reminded him that AC in Europe is like a personality trait, not a guarantee. He laughed, then groaned. We just wanted good sleep. I said, so did I. 48 hours before departure, the host for our shared, remote first leg place messaged, a burst pipe took out the upstairs bathroom. So sorry, must cancel. I stared at my phone, feeling that cold, hollow drop. I pasted the message into the sibling thread and, within minutes, my younger brother was calling, rapid fire. We can't be that far out of the center anymore, we need a king, we need quiet, we'll cover a little more if you. I cut him off. I'm still at $50 per night. If you want a king, that's an upgrade. I'll take a couch. Or I'll get a hostel, he said. You cannot seriously care about this now, like I was asking him to carry me on his back across the Atlantic. I repeated myself. He hung up. My older brother texted, give me an hour. While he was searching, I opened my dock of earlier options and the universe basically winked. A new listing had popped up 15 minutes earlier, brand new renovation, 2 bedrooms, industrial fans, reviews like love letters, and, crucially, a king and a queen. It was running a last-minute promo that brought it to $47 per person per night if we split per person. I messaged the host, got a confirmation within 10 minutes, and sent the link with a bright I'll take the smaller bed and pay less. My older brother replied, book it. We'll make that work. Silence from couple A then, at 1:12 a.m., we can't do the first leg. We'll meet you in City 2. I said, got it. See you there. I flew out alone. My hostel in City 1 felt like a spaceship for grown-ups, quiet pods, icy air, a small reading light that made me feel like I was back in my college dorm but without sticky floors. I dropped my bag and walked until midnight, ate street garlic shrimp with a plastic fork, and slept like I was being paid too. My older brother and his wife landed the next day and stumbled into the new apartment flushed and apologizing. The heat was already mean. We opened every window, turned on every fan, drank water like teenagers after gym class. We did slow days, museums early, cafes until the pavement cooled, long walks by the river at night. They paid me less for the smaller room without me prompting them. It was such a small concession, but it felt like a flag planted. City 2 was where it got weirdly cinematic. Couple B's hotel, the one they'd chosen for noise, location, and quality, sat on a perfect little square that, fun fact, transforms, after 10 p.m. into a drum and sax open-air jam extravaganza. Charming, if you're not trying to sleep. The AC worked at a level I'd describe as suggestion. They sent me a photo at midnight, my brother's wife lying on top of the duvet, hairline damp, giving a thumbs up so forced it looked like a cry for help. "How's your hostel?" He texted. I sent back a picture of my pod thermometer reading 67 degrees and a video of my very humble, very loud fan working its heart out. I added, "Want to sit in the common room tomorrow afternoon? It's freezing." They showed up with laptops and this sheepish energy like they'd snuck into a club they didn't belong to. We played cards, and for 2 hours, it was actually fun again. Right when that was starting to feel normal, couple of parachuted in, buoyant and caffeinated and carrying 4 pieces of luggage like they'd packed for an overseas move. "Guess who got cleared to fly?" she announced. Great. Truly, but within 2 hours, we were right back in the shallow end. They didn't like their hotel room view. They didn't like the smell of the street below. The bathroom door didn't lock like a real door. My younger brother pulled me aside like we were negotiating a hostage situation. "Any chance you can switch to our hotel? It would make it easier to coordinate." I blinked at him. Easier for who? I'm good where I am. That night, his wife texted me a screenshot of an Airbnb, the kind of place you book if your budget is vibes. "If we all split this, it's only $65 per person per night," she wrote, like she'd caught me in a loophole. I stuck to my script. "I'm at $50. I can meet you for breakfast." They booked the glossy place anyway. At 3 a.m., a wedding reception 2 floors down turned into a percussion class. I know this because at 3:11 a.m., my phone pinged with a video, sweaty cousins in suits pounding on congas, my brother in the mirror behind them with the most defeated face I've ever seen him make. Then he texted, "I'm sorry." It was like his apology cracked a seal. The next afternoon, we sat under a canopy of wisteria and he told me he'd been trying to keep options open for everyone and in doing so had just become steamrolled by demands. "You were right about the per-person thing," he said. "You were right about the upgrades." I was. Annoying. I told him I appreciated hearing it. It didn't fix everything, but it took the heat out of the room. 2 days before we flew home, the remote host who'd cancelled wrote back with a refund and an apology and, bizarrely, an offer. She had a friend with a legal, licensed flat in City 2 she couldn't list publicly because of HOA politics. King bed, couch, AC that actually hit 62. "She'll do €80 a night total if you keep it quiet," I told my older brother. We went to look. It was basic, yes, but clean and cool in the way that makes you love a place. He turned to me and said, "If you'll take the couch and pay less, we'll move tonight." We moved. His wife cried happy tears under a blanket like she'd been rescued off a life raft. Couple did not move. They texted in the morning to say their water smelled off and could we shower at our place before our boat tour. I wrote, "No showers here, sorry," because I finally believed no could be a complete sentence without a TED talk attached. "But meet us at the dock." On our last night, my older brother put a stack of euro notes on the table and pushed them across to me. "We ended up paying more than we would have if we just listened to you. This covers what you saved us with the flat and some dinners you picked up." I slid it back. "I'm fine. I liked how we did it." He pushed it again. "It's a gift, not a test." I took half, because I am stubborn but not immune to growth. We all flew home on the same red-eye. My younger brother tried to rally a goodbye hug and I gave him one, quick and polite. "At baggage claim," he said, "so, same time next year?" With a grin that didn't reach his eyes. I said, "Maybe smaller. And in October." He laughed like I was making a joke. Jet lag had me awake at 5:17 a.m., doing the very specific kind of laundry that smells like airplane and sunscreen, when my phone pinged with a Venmo request from my younger brother's wife, €164. 80 city tax plus late checkout plus cleaner tip. The memo had a smiley face like a sticker on a bad grade. She sent back, "Right, but we agreed to split lodging per person this trip." I made coffee because I didn't trust myself not to type with my molars. "We agreed to split the lodging we shared per person." I didn't stay there. My younger brother chimed in with a paragraph about logistics costs, how I chose a different location which meant more Ubers for them, and how this was about fairness. I wrote, "I walked. And ferries were €2. Then I put my phone upside down like it was contagious. 2 minutes later, my older brother, bless him, popped up, "Take me off that request too, please. We didn't stay with you either." No emojis. No frosting. Silence. Then, forget it. Venmo request cancelled. I had one of those stupid, middle of the kitchen wins where you throw both hands up at your dish rack and whisper okay to no one. It didn't feel like a war won, it felt like a door rehung on its hinges. A week and a half went by without real sibling contact, which in our family is equivalent to a snow day. Then my older brother invited me over for grilled peaches and premature football. He met me at the door with a box fan tucked under his arm like a toddler he'd adopted. "A present," he said. "For future heat crises." I laughed harder than it deserved. We ate outside, and after the sun dipped the yard went soft and dark and he said, "We're going somewhere in October. Small. 2 nights. Our budget. Per person. You pick the couch if there is one. He had already made a folder called October on his phone and put a little leaf emoji on it. It was ridiculously corny and also, somehow, completely exactly right. The thaw was interrupted by a group text from my younger brother, a glossy photo of their new dining table set like an ad, with the caption "Friendsgiving at ours. Sleepover edition." Followed by a second photo of a floor plan drawn in notes: primary bedroom for them, guest room for couple B, office, air mattress for me. I wrote back, "Air mattress is fine." Then came the third message: "We're hiring cleaners for the next day, $240 split per family unit." My thumbs moved on muscle memory. Per person is better, I think. He sent back a typing bubble that blossomed and collapsed 3 times before turning into text: "We're doing a family unit split, it's normal." My older brother beat me to it. Per person. We're 5 adults. It's not a wedding registry. The okay from couple A came 5 minutes later, punctured. It should have put me in a petty mood, like I'd won some invisible debate club trophy, but honestly, it just made the day feel lighter. There's a special relief in not having to build an argument for things that should be boringly equitable. 2 nights before Friendsgiving, my younger brother called me at 10:09 p.m., late enough that I assumed something was wrong. He sounded like he was sitting in the dark. "Hey. I'm trying not to be, whatever I've been. I'm sorry about Venmo. And the trip." He took a breath, put down some kind of armor. "We got a call from the clinic today. It wasn't great. We're going to pause a month. I'm telling you because it's why I was being weird, not as a because of excuse." The space between us loosened a little. I told him I was sorry. I told him I'd bring pie on Thursday. We didn't suddenly become different people, but the temperature in the room changed. He asked if we could start over in little ways. I said, "Little is my love language." Friendsgiving itself was fine, which in my family is our best case scenario. They had a chalkboard with a menu and his wife wore an apron that said "Gourd Goddess," and when she realized the oven ran hot she laughed instead of crying, which felt like a minor miracle. At one point, she asked if I'd switch places with her mom on the air mattress because her hips were already sore, and I said yes, of course, because the difference between an upgrade and a reasonable accommodation lives in whether the ask lands like a hand on your shoulder or a hand in your pocket. After dinner, my older brother and I did dishes and watched my younger brother come into the kitchen twice just to say nothing at all. It had the shape of a truce. October turned into a real plan. We picked a small, scruffy town wedged between a river and a mountain an hour north. I found a legal, licensed little cottage with a wood stove, a queen bed, a twin daybed, and a couch if you squinted. It was $44 a night per person if we did it my way. I sent the link with the caption "I'll take the daybed, obviously." He replied, "Booked. Also bringing the fan." His wife added, "I'm making soup." That text felt like someone had taken a heavy coat off me without me noticing. On the actual October weekend, the leaves were doing that shameless gold thing you see in calendars meant to decorate cubicles. We took the slow 9:08 a.m. train, walked 10 minutes to the cottage, and stood in the doorway breathing in clean air like we'd never had it before. The daybed was too short and perfect. We made everything the schedule: farmer's market, soup, cups of coffee standing up, a hike on a trail that looked like a set from a show with a fake small town. At night, we read our books under lamps that made the room look like honey. He put the fan in the window anyway, just for the bit. The only weird ripple was a text from couple A, mid-Saturday, an unsmiling photo of a weekend rate for a hotel in their town they were considering for a baby moon. Worth it? The message said, like we were the luxury concierge desk they'd been missing. I wrote back, "If it makes you happy and you can afford it." It was the truest thing I could give with zero projected math. She sent a heart. 10 minutes later, a second text: "Do they have soup where you are?" I took a picture of our pot, misfit carrots, too much dill, and typed, "More soup than we deserve." She replied, "Good," and then told me she hoped the train wasn't too crowded coming back. The angle kept shifting, but for once, we both stayed upright. At the end of the weekend, my older brother slid €60 across the kitchen table of the cottage. "I'm paying you per person for the extra night if we do this again," he said, because he can't resist a bit. I slid it back. He pushed it toward me. "It's a gift," he said. "Not a test." I took half. We laughed because we know exactly who we are and who we're trying to be. Yesterday, a package showed up at my door with no return address. Inside was a compact travel fan and a post-it that said, "For October, and for whatever July you get next." The handwriting was my younger brother's. I put it on my dresser like a trophy I didn't earn but also kind of did. Tonight I'm making a folder on my phone called Maybe and putting a leaf emoji on it, because I am apparently corny now, too. 3 Wednesdays after the fan showed up, our group chat name changed itself. Or at least that's how it felt. I woke up to the unit, per person, with a leaf next to it, courtesy of my older brother, and a wow okay from my younger brother that read like he'd rolled his eyes and then told on himself. It was mid-December, and New York had just decided to pretend it lives in a movie where it snows on cue for ambience but still makes your sneakers into cold sponges. I was on the train with wet cuffs when couple lobbed the next plan, pre-baby spa weekend upstate. It came with 3 photos of fireplaces and one of a copper tub perched by a window like an influencer, and a rate that started at $410/night plus resort fee. They were already halfway through the sales pitch by the time I finished coffee. "We'll all get massages," she wrote. "It's low key. We just want to be cozy and together. It's going to be our last thing before we hopefully can't do last things." I told them the truth as simply as I could. "I can come for the day if we line up a weekday discount, but I can't swing staying there." My younger brother sent 3 dots, stopped, started again, then wrote, "We can cover some," and then, a full stop. He followed it with, "Actually, it's fine. Come for the day. We'll plan around your train." It was weirdly intimate, watching him change course in real time. You could hear the gears re-lubricate. We booked day passes for a Tuesday like hedge fund monks. I took the 802 a.m., sat in a bathrobe that wasn't mine, and ate the kind of salad that costs $22 because the lettuce knows jazz. I watched them sort of settle into something I hadn't seen on them in months: quiet shoulders, slower sentences. When the staff tried to sell us oxygen enhancements, my older brother looked at me like, "If you say a number, I'll adopt it." I said, "No, thanks," and his smile was a relief that made me laugh. I got back to the city that night feeling a little sunburned from polite indulgence and sent a picture of my $3 bodega soup like a counterspell. "Soup supremacy," my older brother wrote. It was absurd how right he was. The storm came in sideways on Friday, the kind that turns crosswalk signs into confetti and rips umbrellas inside out for sport. At 9:31 p.m., my younger brother called and I could hear the panic at the edges, like the sound you get when someone covers their mouthpiece but not well. "Our ceiling is dripping," he said. "It's the upstairs neighbor's radiator and it's warm, which is sickening. Can we," his wife's voice came faintly, "just ask? Ask like a human." He amended, "Can we sleep at your place? Just tonight? The bedroom smells like a penny you've licked." I said yes before he finished the sentence. In 30 minutes I had my roommate on team towel with me, throwing every extra blanket we owned onto the couch and rolling out the nice air mattress like it was a red carpet for an unglamorous premiere. They showed up with damp hair and a paper bag of weird groceries, 2 grapefruits, a cucumber, and a carton of eggs nobody had checked for cracks, and that apology energy that makes a doorway feel ceremonial. The travel fan went on the coffee table like a mascot. The room turned into a campsite. We watched an old game show with the sound off and ate toast. At one point, my younger brother stood in my tiny kitchen and just looked. The art supplies in the corner. The list of co-pays on a post-it. The 2 mugs that have never matched that sit together like they've made peace with it. "You live on purpose," he said. He said it like he'd been wanting to give me that sentence but couldn't find the box it came in. In the morning, they insisted on buying breakfast. When he tried to Venmo me for sleepover utilities, his wife reached over his shoulder and canceled it before I could. She said, "Gift, not a test," and then rolled her eyes at herself because she knew exactly what she was doing, and so did I while they were still tying shoes. The super back at their building texted that the leak had hit 2 other units and nobody would be home tonight anyway. "Do you want to do a second night?" I asked. "We can watch a terrible movie and pretend we're 13. They did. We ate Chinese food that arrived sweating and glorious, and we tipped in cash without making a math problem out of it. And, when my roommate took a photo of us in our dumbness wearing 3 different flannel patterns, it looked like a family that had happened on purpose. 2 days later, my phone lit up with a picture of a croissant held in 2 hands like a tiny animal. "Transfer scheduled," she wrote. I stared at it for so long I gave my own eyeballs a headache. I wrote back, "I am rooting for your croissant." It was the only funny way I could say something absolutely not funny. She sent a heart and then 3 days after that sent nothing at all, which felt like the right kind of quiet. Work grabbed me by the collar in January and shook me until some good news fell out. A gallery that had liked a small series on city windows asked if I could make 6 more and hang them in March. They were not paying me an exposure, to my absolute shock. I bought canvases that smelled like optimism and told my older brother I was going to Philly for a day to see a show and get out of my own head. He asked if he could come like a kid asking if this car turns into a robot. He brought the fan for the joke and we took the $14 bus that feels like gambling with your own time. We spent 3 hours looking at paint as if it was doing magic and not chemistry. For lunch we ate hoagies outside wearing gloves like lunatics, and I paid for mine and half of his without announcing it. He tried to give me $6 in singles at the station and I said, "No." He said, "Gift, not a test," and then we both laughed because we are small and predictable, but also, content. The crazy part landed in our laps like a highly curated meteor. My younger brother's wife works in advertising adjacent to hospitality, which is a sentence I understand enough to know it means sometimes she is treated like a celebrity by people who are in charge of thread counts. She texted us on a Thursday, "Hotel soft opening next weekend, 2 comp suites if we post nothing and complain to no one. Do you want in?" She promised actual AC, actual soundproofing, and a bathtub that looked like it could float away if you unlatched it. We said yes because the universe had offered a free hand warmer and we weren't going to be the person who says, "No thanks, I love frostbite." The place was a glossed old bank, all vault doors and terrazzo floors pretending they had always been friends, not a marriage arranged by a developer. The lobby smelled like a herb you only pretend to know. Our room had a blackout shade that fell like a curtain at the opera and a tablet for the lights that I immediately put back on the desk like it was a snake. I set the AC to 67 because I am nothing if not faithful. We went to the rooftop where there were plants that had no business being alive in this city in February and drank seltzer like it was champagne because being invited somewhere fancy and ordering water is its own powerful joy. At 2:18 a.m., the fire alarm went off. Not the half-hearted, "we're testing" tone. The one that says, "put your shoes on, this is real." My older brother shot out of his bed like someone had fired a starter pistol. We met in the hall in the borrowed robes that make everyone look like a king in recovery. A line of people with messy hair and excellent skincare shuffled toward the stairs while a man in a tuxedo argued with his own cufflinks about it. Down in the lobby, security was doing that soothing voice that makes you want to be mad at them and also hug them. "Rooftop fog machine," someone whispered like a plot twist. The fog had drifted under a door and told the system we were burning money, which, to be fair, we were. My younger brother stood next to me barefoot because the only shoes he'd grabbed were his wife's clogs and he refused to wear them on the grounds of dignity, which was, I have to admit, a principled stand. He looked at me over the top of his robe belt and said, "Per person evac?" And I laughed out loud in public at 2:20 a.m. in a lobby that smelled like time and irony. Back upstairs, the AC remembered who it was and took the edge off our adrenaline. We slept like people who know they can. In the morning, the hotel boxed croissants like doves and apologized with espresso. We checked out in a mood I'd call weightless. On the sidewalk, my younger brother's wife took my hand and put it on her shoulder for a second. "I think we're going to be okay," she said, like a spell you cast and then hold in your mouth. I nodded because out loud felt like doing too much to a sentence that needed to be exactly the size it was. 2 weeks later, she sent a picture of 2 stripes on a stick that could have been anything to anyone else. She didn't add words for a full minute. Then she wrote, "It took." I was on the crosstown bus, elbow to elbow with a man in a coat that had absorbed every cigarette smoked in 1997, and I started crying like an idiot into my scarf. My older brother sent soup party and then followed it with, "I'm not sure that's a thing but I will make it one." When we gathered that Sunday in their kitchen, she drank ginger tea and let us hold the idea of this future person like it was an egg we were too old to be trusted with. My younger brother put his hand out mid-sentence like he was going to say "per person" again, and then just changed it to "please get the good crackers." The baby didn't immediately fix their impulse to spreadsheet the universe. The next day, he texted about a stroller that costs more than my first car and typed a paragraph about resale value, and I told him to spend however made him breathe easier without asking me to hold the receipt. He sent, "fair," and then a photo of a tiny hat that looked like it would fit on a clementine. 2 days after that, he wrote, "We need to travel to see her sister before the 3rd trimester. Do you know how to do deals?" I said I could find them trains that didn't involve 2 transfers and a goat path. He said, "Per person?" And then a kidding right after like a reflex he caught with his own hands. On a Thursday in March, my older brother showed up at my studio with a stack of wood. "For frames," he said. I watched a video where the guy insists on a miter saw like it's a religion. I borrowed one. He set up on my kitchen table and did that thing he does where he makes himself new and useful in the same breath. He measured twice. He cut once. He swore with craftsperson elegance when one corner didn't line up like it was making a point. We hung the 6 pieces on my wall to mind trick me into not panicking about the show. He said, "We're going to pretend this is normal because it is." I said, "Gift, not a test," and he tried to throw a wood chip at me and it fluttered like a bored butterfly. The next curveball was less a ball and more the whole mechanical pitching machine rolled into the room. My parents, who had remained very kindly background fixtures in all this, announced they were renting a lake house in June for their anniversary. "Sleeps 8, my mom said. 2 queens, 2 twins, a pull-out, and a loft with mattresses for teens." She paused. "We have no teens." She sounded proud, like she'd bought extras on purpose. "We'll pay for the house," my dad said, "but you all figure food and whatever else." He said whatever else the way dads say Wi-Fi, like it's magic, not bills. Couple asked for the queen and then asked if there was a way to make the twins into a king, which is not how physics works. I said I would take the pull-out before anyone could politely pretend not to look at it. The text that kicked up dust was my younger brother's, "We'll do a grocery run ahead. Can everyone send $120 and we'll settle up?" He followed it with, "Per family unit," like he was trying to trick me into ignoring the bait by making it familiar. My older brother replied with 5 adults. "Per person," and then, in a wild act of growth, my younger brother said, "Right," and changed the math. When we got there was too much fruit and an aggressive number of yogurts, and also, somehow, no salt. The lake was cold enough to make your ankles feel baptized. We sat on the dock and ate tomatoes like apples because summer makes you weird. My younger brother lay back with his hand on his wife's stomach even though there was nothing to feel yet, and he looked at the sky like it was cooperating. On the last night, a storm came fast across the water, that trick where the lake goes gray in sections like someone's pulling a blanket across it. The power went out. We lit candles we had no business lighting because the rules said not to, but the rules also said no glass by the water and we were all fantastic liars. The travel fan, God bless its battery, did its best at the edge of the couch like a small dog offering security. We played cards, and my mom cheated in a way that let my dad catch her. The room edged right up to sentimental and then stopped itself with a joke because we are genetically allergic to sincerity without a garnish. When we packed up, my younger brother tried to hand me a folded receipt and I said, If it's a test, I'm leaving it here, just to watch him do the face. He laughed and said, "It's really just a receipt. And, it's a gift, keep the receipt," because he cannot resist editing his own bit. He put a bag in my car that turned out to be a Tupperware of soup, obviously, but also a tiny Ziploc with euros and a note that said, "For whatever July you get next." His handwriting had the same curve it said since he was 12. I put the euros in the small dish where keys go because I wanted to see them when I came home. I wanted to keep saying yes to the life that was coming at us in correct small pieces. Last night, he sent me a 14-second video of their dryer gurgling like a gremlin. "House stuff," he wrote, like a warning label we could both laugh at now. Then, 5 beats later, "We're doing the hospital tour next week. Can you come?" The fact that he asked instead of assigning me felt like a rewire. I said yes. I told him I'd bring my fan if the AC was a suggestion. He sent back a leaf and a bowl emoji and then wrote, "Per person." And then kidding, before I could make the joke for him.